technician Yami providing us.
No.
Uh-oh.
Hello,
All right, hey guys.
Hi.
Welcome back. Welcome,
Thank you for
welcome.
tuning in on a
Yeah.
Friday night.
Friday night.
At least for a little bit. We are so late.
We are a
We are
little
so
late.
late.
We got caught up in a little bit of traffic. Unfortunately, there was an accident. Our hearts go out to whoever was in the
We
accident,
hope that they're
for
okay.
sure.
Everybody
Yeah,
knows if you live in LA,
the treacherous 110.
the treacherous 10 freeway is just as it is described.
It's a doozy,
Yeah.
for sure. But we're here. We have art. We have things to tell you about. I guess this is going to be a little different from our previous episodes, where obviously there's no one with us. It is just going to be Julie and I kind of not only talking about our previous virtual art show, our first virtual art show, and then just talking about ourselves as artists, as now gallery owners, and as your hosts.
Yeah.
So how about we start with?
I want to start off thanking, of course, Wilshire.
For sure.
1001
You have
Wilshire
to.
for hosting us here. Thank you so much for giving us the space so we can do this podcast and we can connect with people.
Connect with you.
Yeah. Thank you to Happening Studios for broadcasting us and giving us the platform to do this in the first place. It's amazing, and we've been so grateful for that. If you don't know already, I'm Julia Francis, and this is Alex Feliciano.
Alex Feliciano.
Yeah.
Hello.
And we are Artory DTLA.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where should we start?
I think we should start with the show. I mean, we are drinking, first and foremost, we're drinking this wonderful water in Linda Raw, our featured ceramicist for Play and Bounty, our first virtual art show. Her mugs, look at these beauties.
Yes.
They are, let me get my mitt out the way.
We have Alex and I have a gallery space at Big Art Labs.
Yes,
well, it's a studio space really. It's more of a work complex.
Yeah.
For working artists, and unlike the area that's right next to us, which is the brewery, they have more of kind of like a more set up, established gallery studio space complex. And I would say that our studio within Big Art Labs is one of the first to kind of like take on the idea, I think, of building a space where we can represent other artists rather than just work for ourselves. And so we have what we decided to call the Francis Gallery.
Indeed.
Not officially established on any websites yet, but we're getting there.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Yes. But we are representing our first artist in the gallery, which was, like we just said, Linda Raw, Jimmy Ceramics. And then we have our wonderful
paintings by Patrick Semple. Obviously, he is an abstract artist who is a dear friend and also obviously a phenomenal creator. And we just thought when it came to build pretty much after a year of building up this current iteration of the consistent evolution of our studio/gallery space, we thought these two people would just click, and they did. And I mean, both of their artwork is very organic. It's very, I would say, fluid in their own ways, and I think that's what makes them have a good dialogue with each other. And for us, it was definitely a learning experience. There was some stressful moments just trying to figure out what it means to even own a gallery space, and then how to bring it to someone in a palatable way, especially now when there's COVID that's happening right now, and face-to-face interactions is something that has now become really precious, and obviously cannot happen in the ways that we would want, especially for a gallery space. And so to kind of go through all that and make it through the other end was really special, I think.
Yeah, we're trying our best to kind of maneuver that, and virtual is not ideal, but we're making it work. And like you said, we have a lot of kinks that we could probably work out. Like our virtual art show, I believe, went way better than we could have hoped and expected, with the exception of some sound issues, which we have resolved and are now planning for the next one.
Whoever was tuning in and heard all the distortion, we figured it out. It's not going to happen again.
But we are so grateful for Sonia and her patience, and she is a phenomenal musician. yeah, if
Yeah.
you didn't get to tune in to the art show, we have the video posted on Happening DTLA, and then we also have it on Artory DTLA. And O Sergio was the performer that we had, and her music is available to stream everywhere, with her new album being titled "We'll Be All Right."
Yeah.
Which we will, hopefully.
Yeah, it was awesome to see just how all these people kind of came together. And, it's funny how, you would think, especially when it comes to something like this, it'd be hard to find amazing creatives. But for us, it was, it was right in our backyard, all friends, all good people. I mean, Linda literally has a studio space right away from us. So, you never know what's I guess right in your own backyard, and I think that was what I think personally would made it super special. There was definitely a good energy with the people, and I think that's been kind of exemplified in just what we were able to create and how beautiful the space looks now. And we're going to be definitely posting more and showing some more of the things that we've been building and creating, so we can accommodate not only Linda and Patrick and O Sergio, but future artists as well that we're going to be having. We're going to be having a upcoming art show in the near future. So,
well, we hope to do the art shows every other month.
Yeah, just to give us some
months, something like that.
Give us some cushion.
Since this is the first one, we still have some things to work out, but have one run for a month, have a month off, and then month and a half off, something like that, and then have another one run. But we're looking towards the end of April for the next one. For sure. In the works on who we have the people almost solidified for that one. Stay tuned. We'll talk about that later.
For sure.
Someone asked how they can contact you.
Contact us.
You can contact us through Artory DTLA. Both of us run the account.
Yeah.
You can also contact us on our personal accounts if you wish, and which is just fine. I'm Julia Frances _art. And this is...
And I'm Ohm Abstract. That's AUM Abstract. Yeah. And we are the Artery team, just in case you're tuning in again.
Maybe put that in the comment down there.
But again, coming back to what this is, I think I'll be the first one to kind of move into these waters and just kind of want to ask Julia first and foremost, for people to get to know her a little better. When did you first discover art? Let's go there.
In the womb.
In the womb.
I discovered art in the womb, essentially, and I say that because everyone, I would say my mom's side of the family is a little more business oriented, and they've been more keen on, a more structured lifestyle, and more into the idea of financial institutions in terms of like working for banks or handling money or becoming, financial assistants. Like my mother went to school in Nashville and was studying in financials. And my aunt, who lives in Dallas, was studying that as well. And she worked for Merrill Lynch. And but I back to what I was saying. I would say that because my dad's side of the family, every single one on my dad's side of the family has been some sort of creative. And my dad was a printmaker, or he knows printmaking, and he's also really skilled at drawing. My brother is in animation, and he can do all kinds of creative computer work. All my aunts are in some sort of field with hair or beauty, with jewelry, clothing design, like all over the spectrum. My cousins are painters and drawers, and it was like, it was in my blood. It was meant to be. And even when I had my doubts about it, there was never like I was always going to come back to it again, essentially. So in 8th grade, I grew up in Dixon, Tennessee. If you don't know where that is, it is about 40 minutes west of Nashville, Tennessee, which is, of course, the capital of Tennessee. And in the 8th grade, the school that I went to, Dixon County High School, they make you choose between taking music, because I was in band at the time, and I played the flute for a couple years.
That's so crazy.
Before, I know, it's like almost didn't even happen. It feels so far away. Before I went into high school, they make you choose between being in band or taking an extracurricular like art, like any kind of art class that they might offer. I mean, didn't offer a whole lot. It's high school. But I pretty much in my head immediately, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I won't know that I want to be in some sort of field of art. I didn't know if it was going to be in painting or drawing or whatever at that time, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I was like, I got to give up band.
Wow.
And so 8th grade, I took my first art class that I can really remember, like making things where I was like, this is so much fun. And then all throughout high school, I took art classes as well. And my junior year of high school, I pretty much capped out on the classes that you could take. And the class that I was in kind of rallied around our art teacher, and we're like, we need another art class, and we would like one that's more advanced. And so we kind of came together and signed some, I don't even remember now what it would be called, like some sort of petition to like get a new class put in. And so we were like, we need
more classes.
It was 3D. The class before was 3D art and design.
Oh,
no,
cool.
3D design with ceramics. That's what it was. And we wanted an advanced version of that. And so we successfully created a new class my senior year of high school to get a more advanced, study of it at that time. And I would say that was my first success in like really like taking on the art world, where I was like, we need more art. And so, yeah. And then after that, I went to community college, took a lot of painting classes. I would say that at that time I was in my prime, and I felt really good about my oil painting skills. And then it was like I went to Cal State Fullerton, and the next 4 years were like, oh my God, I can't do anything. And it just got harder and harder and harder. And yeah, so I went to 4 years at El Camino College in Torrance. Yeah. And then I went 4 years at Cal State Fullerton, and graduated with my bachelor's in fine arts in painting and drawing. And now here I am.
I mean, I'm sure people back home, whoever, this is always like a mecca, a mecca of coming here for some sort of creative pursuit. Was it hard to make that transition just being so, because I don't think she mentioned it, but after high school, she immediately came to Los Angeles, or at least in the area. And then, you're kind of hitting the ground running. Was it hard to, were you doing art during that time, or was it kind of like you were hustling in order to kind of trying to establish yourself just in terms of a stable foundation to work off of?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I was some sort of established artist before.
Oh no, not.
I came here, obviously. I mean, I will say that my senior year of high school, I felt very passionate about being in the arts in some form, but my priority at that time was getting out of Tennessee. I love Tennessee for so many reasons, but I also never felt welcome there. I never felt like I belonged there at the same time, unfortunately. And my whole senior year, I spent most of my time convincing my dad that I needed to move to California. And just to be clear, I was born in San Luis Obispo here in California. It might be confusing, but my mom's family is from Nashville. And so when I was 3, we ended up in Nashville. And when I was 17, I graduated from high school, and my dad was finally like, yeah, okay, fine. You can go. You can get there, I guess. You'll be fine. Because he did the same thing that I did.
He did it even crazier, though.
Yeah, my dad, he was born in Michigan, and he was born in the 60s, and during that time, hitchhiking was whatever. It was like, everyone's
true,
doing
Jack, John Kerouac, on the road.
Yeah, everybody's doing it, travel all around. He left when he was really young, and so it was easy for him to be, obviously no parent wants to see their kid leave them, but at the same time, he was like, I understand. You need to go.
Incredible. I mean, coming from a man that literally, I forgot, the story is so funny. He somehow wound up in Colorado, right? And his mom was like, oh, aren't you going to be home soon?
He told me a story about his brother. His brother was living in Colorado at the time. I think my dad said he was about 17 or 16 or something. And he's like, I'm just gonna go hitchhike to see my brother in Colorado. And he hitchhiked all the way to Colorado from Michigan. And my grandmother, his mom, called him that night and was like, hey, when are you coming home for dinner? And he's like, I'm in Colorado. Actually. She's like, you need to come back right now, and bought him a bus ticket to get all the way back there.
That's so
funny. And
funny.
it just, it's just such a free, my family in that way is such a free, spirited group of people, and they're so open-minded and creative, and so naturally I just fell into that, and
for sure.
And when I came to California, I didn't really have any kind of intention of like what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to do art, but I didn't come specifically for school or for work. It was legitimately just to get away because I knew that I needed a bigger life somewhere else, and I wanted more opportunity. And unfortunately, there's not as much opportunities like Dixon. I mean, it's this real super small town of like, 14,000 people, 15. I mean, I'm sure there's more now because I just went back this last year, and I mean, the growth of the city is exponential, as you saw.
Yeah,
Alex
for
came
sure.
with me, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I came here to get away, and then I traveled around and traveled the world, and was super fortunate to do that, and lived in San Francisco for a little bit, learned a lot there. And now I finally feel like I've established myself here now that I've graduated college and really settled into the art world. I would say that
You're in.
In my own personal art world, I wouldn't say, there's still so much to learn and so many people to reach. And
I know.
like even today, Alex and I went to a printing press, like an awesome printing studio, printmaking studio, literally like a minute walk from our studio.
Literally.
And it is beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah, our friend Miguel, who we've also had on the podcast, he was like, "Hey, have you seen the studio down the way?" And we were like, "No, I don't know anything
Not
about
at
it."
all.
Modern Multiples. Yeah, if you know Modern Multiples,
check them out. They have amazing work. Thank you for allowing us to be in your studio to take a little tour. You guys are doing awesome stuff. So shout you guys out for sure. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to hear a story because being a Cali kid for for my whole life, it's nice and refreshing to see how other people do it and how other people gravitate towards this area for sure. I mean, for you, did it seem like how do I put this? Did it seem like you needed those journeys to kind of influence your art, or is that something that you don't kind of allow into your process?
No, I think that they're very much influential. I would say the majority of my travels, I mean, of course, with you as well, like are centered around going out camping or hiking or into nature. And, I've had my share of travels overseas, into Europe and Southeast Asia. And in some form, you get that, especially in Southeast Asia, it's very forested and more surrounded by nature than a place like Europe in some sense. And I guess I'm thinking more specifically Italy, but I mean, that's irrelevant. But I would say that those influences and putting myself in those kind of environments just kind of reminded me how special being out in nature is, and that's what a lot of my work, obviously, revolves around. And having those experiences just like further and further and further solidify the kind of things that you want to make and the kind of things that you appreciate and the kind of things that you would want to put onto a canvas or onto a panel or anything or sculpture, which I'm making those stumps. I haven't made one, but in a little while. But the stumps, are indicative of me camping and hiking, and that's what I do most. And so, of course, I just want to recreate those. And though there was times where I spent a lot of time in the city, like when I was living in San Francisco, I was living literally right in the middle of downtown in Soma, south of Market Street, Market Avenue, and it's so crazy there, and staying in a place like that for too long can make you like forget what else is around you because you have everything you need and you can walk to it all, and it's just madness and it's loud.
It's a lot of energy in one place. You can get swept up in a big city like that for sure.
Yeah. And so there's times where I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna work with blocks of color and and make angular shapes and things that look like the architecture that I'm seeing all the time. And I feel like if I stayed there for multiple years, in that one spot, I might have been making like completely different work. But
no, I totally agree with that. I mean, there was one time when I made it a point that I traveled up the coast to Oregon, and the whole time I camped along the way, and it was like a 2-week trip, and I brought my painting supplies and some canvases because I was still working on canvases at that time, and it was freaking amazing to be in like in the Humboldt Redwood National Forest, and you're surrounded by redwoods, and you're painting, and you're seeing how environments influence you. I'd be curious to see what would happen if you were to go back to Tennessee and how, let's say, like an environment like that would influence you? You know, do you ever think about those kind of things?
I think it would be the same. It would just, it would be, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've ever been to Tennessee, you know how woodsy of an area it is, and how, I mean, there's way more trees than you can imagine. It's like if you drive up the 2 freeway, not freeway, I mean highway. You drive up the 2 highway here, and you go into Angeles Crest National Forest, and you go deep in. I mean, it's just covered in trees and shrubs and, you know, everything. It's like, with the exception of the mountains in Tennessee, it's like that all everywhere. And
Literally, you can just walk like down a side street, and then you're just like
it's
in
super
forest.
wooded.
Yeah.
There's creatures all over the road. You know, there's cows everywhere. There's fields and there's hills, and you can take pretty much any road anywhere and get lost all the
for sure.
time. Like unlike in LA where everything's on a grid. And you take a wrong turn, you just go to the next light, and you take a right, and you just block yourself around. You know, you get lost in Tennessee, and though there's something really, I mean, it can be terrifying if you're not used to that, but there's something really special about it too, because it really gives you, like, one of my favorite pastimes is actually driving. And that's probably like cringy for a lot of people here to like hear.
They're
because
like, what did you say?
it's so much harder to just like drive for leisure here. And when you're in a place like Tennessee and there's not really a lot to do like there is here, you just want it, like I said, one of my favorite pastimes is driving, because you just like, oh, I'm just going to go out and drive because it is literally that beautiful. And getting lost a little bit and finding your way around and finding new places is just like, it's normal.
Oh,
it's totally normal, and it's super refreshing, and it gives you time to think. And, you know, you just, sometimes I feel like I can't think here. As much as I love it here, now thinking about it, I'm like, that would be nice. And I would be curious to go back and stay there for a little bit and see how it affect how I feel about here and how I feel about creating things, what I'm creating now, and if it would change. I would assume it would.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. When do you think is that the next time you're going to head back to Tennessee?
I don't know. Hopefully this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
Nice.
tell me about you and your journey.
And my journey, oh my God, how long do you have? Because I feel like my answer to when I discovered art definitely was not in the womb. I had no conception of art until I was, how old was I? I was like 25, I think, is when I actually truly discovered art. I mean, I guess when I was younger, I mean, you know, there's obviously, I do come from a family that has a lot of creatives, a lot of musicians. I don't know necessarily artists, anything necessarily visual in that way, but you know, I definitely there's a lot of potential, I guess you could say, potential when it came to art. And I mean, for me, art was a form of therapy. Before discovering art, I had found my way into some deep depression and had some drug problems and gotten 2 DUIs within 2 months of each other, and was just really unhealthy. And I had gotten a degree in a field that intrigued me, but I wasn't doing anything with, because when you're dealing with mental illness, it's like a black hole, and at the event horizon, anything that's not about drugs or not about the alcohol or the partying is just, it doesn't matter. And so kind of fast forwarding through all of that and kind of the chaos that arose from that pain and that suffering that just came from like familial issues and from death, it was a lot in me already that needed to be kind of released. And so, funny enough, shout out to one of my good friends. He lives now of all places, in this like little rural town off in the Alps, and with a beautiful wife, and also my other friend Nick. Shout out to Nick. It was his birthday. His 25th birthday, and I had just finished a current bound of cancer treatment. I was kind of going through going through a whole bunch, going through rehab, and then right out of rehab, was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And getting out of that, hit up my friend. I'm like so stoked. It's his birthday. He tells me he wants to paint, and he wants to paint, and he wants to do something a little bit more psychedelic, if you know what I mean. And we decide to go take some magic mushrooms, and we go and paint. And I find something that was completely freeing and liberating, and there was no rules, and there was, in a society that's predicated on rules and on structure and on, the right move and the wrong move, there's no such thing when it comes to that in art. And that was, I think, probably the best way to look not only at the form of what it means to create something, but also in terms of how to understand yourself and how to get your thoughts out in the open in a more physical way. And I'm a very physical person in terms of like movement. I love athletics. I love to do yoga and all these other things, and it definitely influences each other. And so that was my way, first and foremost, of understanding feelings and communicating. And then from there, just I got a lot of good support from friends. Shout out to the Anton family. They definitely were the first real patrons of telling me, you can do this as for a living. And from there, just went from there. It was a hell of a ride.
Wow.
That's just like the shortened version of that, right?
Yeah.
That story.
So
but
he's got a pretty big story.
it's a big story. It's a lot to bite off, but I didn't want to.
Every time I've heard it before, but every time I hear it, I'm like,
you're like, what the fuck?
how are you alive?
Yeah, I mean,
with everything that has happened.
It's a blessing, and I think that, for other people, I don't know how other people feel when it comes to anything more spiritual, but I see it as a second chance, because for me, like I always tell you that story about how I even got into rehab. I was going through, and for a caveat, for anyone who is having any sort of mental health issues, definitely go get help. Definitely communicate with someone how you're feeling, because the last thing you want to do is be in a place where you're all by yourself and you're not letting people know what's going on. And I was in that position where I was going to try to attempt to take my life, and there was no one around. And, funny enough, I took a bunch of pills. I was, and I passed out for a good 7 hours, and I woke up to some police, that had been called saying that someone was trying to attempt suicide in the house. And that's what got me into rehab. And to this day, I have no clue who called the cops. And it was, it was something that was, honestly, it changed my life. It really changed my life. And I think that's something that, that's amazing about this whole idea. Because art to me is how you live your life. It's how you go through your day-to-day and the routine that you have, and how you want to dedicate that creative ability to each moment and to each second that you can be creating. So, yeah, it's a blessing. Like I always tell you, if you were to have met me back then, I would have been a completely different person.
I believe it.
Yeah.
From what you've told me.
Trippy.
So then, okay, so you started creating at your friend's birthday party. And
creating at the birthday party, yeah.
Then Alex's, I don't know if you mentioned already, Alex's major medium is resin. And a fluid acrylic.
Yeah.
And so how did you had kind of starting, like I've seen your earlier canvases, you kind of started out more so just with regular artist acrylic paint, right?
I did,
And you were doing a lot of textural kind of more expressionistic type paintings. And then how did you transition into the fluid acrylic?
That's
and
another
resin.
That's a really funny story. I was very inspired by Van Gogh. Is it Van Gogh? Van Gogh.
I mean, it seems. I think
guess
that's
that
the
is
proper
the
pronunciation.
yeah. But let's just
we wouldn't call it that here.
So yeah, inspired by Van Gogh, and thankfully I actually met this local artist, Kenton Nelson. Shout out to Kenton Nelson, amazing artist. He was very gracious and sat down with me and kind of gave me some direction. And one of the main things he said was, here's this big book from the MoMA, has a bunch of contemporary artists. Look at people that inspire you and see what you can do with it. And so I started out doing, like she said, very impressionistic, very expressionistic work, like Van Gogh. And from there, I was watching Space Odyssey 2001. I don't know if anyone sees it. Has anyone seen it? And there's this one moment where the main character goes into this other dimension, and there's this artistic rendition of what that looks like, and it's like swirling color, and all these vibrant lights that are kind of like dancing on the main character's face, and I was like, that is freaking awesome. And I don't know how that like jogged me into trying to do something new, but I just started taking buckets quarts, like little quart canisters they can get from Home Depot of house paints. Rust-Oleum is the brand, and they have like, it's like $8 per quart. And I just got a bunch of primary colors, and I poured puddles of colors into each other, and then that physicality kind of came to play, where I was like, how do I move this paint after I've kind of poured colors into colors? And I basically just started swirling them around, firstly just physically with my hands on the canvas, and it created these very naturalistic kind of almost like a geode, or even like the rings of like a stump, so to speak. If you were to think of,
I would say more so like layers in sediment.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
If you
That's
split
actually way
a
better.
tectonic plate in half, you would see all of these layers. From buildup over the years.
Yeah.
And it does. A lot of times it's stacked,
Yeah.
right? Up, down, and sometimes it's slanted. But there are a lot of.
It's a lot of movement.
There's a lot of fluid movement there.
Yeah.
Because it was all really hot at one point.
Exactly.
And so yeah, that's my comparison.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That sounds way better than where I was going with it. But yeah, so that's where it kind of started, and from there I was very interested in like she said, in the layering that you can do with it, and then the kind of body that it can have, and the presence that it can have. And I was really interested in that idea of not only capturing time, but also infusing my motion into the piece itself, which was almost like a physical representation of a dance in that kind of a way. There's this idea that from my sweat and from my breath, even, you can say, I'm infusing that into the piece in order to give it life. And so I thought that was really interesting at that time. So yeah, and then from there, it just became more and more sculptural, and I moved away from traditional stretch canvas and started working on wood panel, and now from wood panel going even more sculptural, going even more dimensional, getting a less always I don't want there to be some sort of metaphor when it comes to my art. I want the artist to stand as itself and be, I think, like Julia was saying, we're very much in love with nature and the lessons that nature can teach, and there's a lot of that infused into it. A lot of even taking found pieces from nature and applying it to the art piece itself, and trying to bridge the gap between my expression and just having like kind of nature unfold as its own self, as its own expression. So yeah.
We, I guess for those of you who don't know, in case you missed it, Alex and I share a studio space.
We do.
And he's been there for about 5 years.
5 years.
Probably.
I looked for the first lease agreement. 5 years. I can't even believe it. That's freaking crazy.
5 years. And then I officially moved into that studio space with him, like just over a year ago, a year and a couple months or something like that.
No way, really?
Yeah.
That was so funny.
December of 2019.
Tell them that story. How did you move in?
How did I move in?
Yeah. You had like a little corner, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Alex had. Well, we have a double space that has been opened up in the center and has been made into more of a giant studio space.
For sure.
And when I first got there, he was just by himself in half of that, and it was pretty messy.
It was pretty bad.
Messy.
Caveat to that was that originally it was the original space that we had, but then And I had learned from when I originally had gone to space, the idea was I had partnered with this amazing artist, Piruz, and he had basically kind of taught me foundational principles of design and building and all these different things. So we built the bones of what Frances Gallery is back then. And then when him and I parted ways, you know, I couldn't afford that additional space, and nor did I really need it at the time. And so we boarded it back up, put this big wall back up, and it was really sad. And then, you know, fast forward to Julia moving back in.
Yeah, I moved in. I was going to Fullerton at the time for you know, for painting and drawing, and my only studio space was my bedroom, and I was in a 2-bedroom apartment, a tiny bedroom, and my bed was right next to all of my painting supplies. You couldn't, I mean, I had my easel up and you couldn't hardly reach my bed because everything was kind of taken over. And so when I met Alex, you know, he invited me into a space, and I came in and he pretty much gave me a little corner of the space.
Which I still feel really bad about. Like, looking back in hindsight, I remember, because my painting space is upstairs, because we have a 2-story we built up. And my painting area is upstairs, and hers was down. And originally there was these 2 6-foot tables that you could use, and then.
Well, at the time that was enough for me. I wouldn't say that I needed a whole lot more space than that. I just needed a place for my easel and then a table to have all the stuff to put it on. And I think that was fine. But like, looking at it now, I mean,
it's
now that we have
sacrilege.
Space for ourselves, you're like, why would I ever put myself in that situation? But he obviously was gracious enough to give me some space at all, and I was like, absolutely, I will work in the tiniest of corners. It's way better than, you know, huffing my oil paint while I sleep at night.
Oh, truth.
That's all I had. And so, and so we moved in. So I moved into the studio space, and then slowly it grew and it grew and it grew, and we had all these ideas, and now it's a gallery. It's like official gallery space.
Yeah, how about we back up too, because I think what got us even like attracted to that idea was we were doing these pop-up gallery shows at venues all throughout Los Angeles. Like, the first one was at the Indigo. We did one at Hotel Figueroa. We did a couple with this company, this great festival company called Eternal Elements. Shout out Eternal Elements, out in. I think he's also in downtown LA somewhere. I forgot where.
Where he's hosting it? Or was it Echo Park?
Oh, that was in Echo Park?
Yeah.
Shout out Echo Park. And and we kind of got the idea of how we can kind of create alternate spaces than the traditional gallery space, and you could fill it with a lot of beautiful work. And I think we learned a lot, and kind of definitely suffered a lot, because that was hard work.
We were the designated kind of like art. We were the kind of the curators for the art, finding the artists. So Alex more so than me. I was just more kind of like setup crew at that point.
But no, I definitely took your input was awesome.
Well, Alex mostly found the artists at that time for like the Eternal. Just for example, the Eternal Elements event was a music. I would say it was an indoor small scale music festival, and there was a couple different rooms where there'd be different artists playing, musicians playing, and then there would be live art happening at the same time. So there'd be live painters, Alex found the artists, and we came in and we had to hang all of the artwork ourselves.
The same day.
We had to make sure
5 hours
all
to do
the artists that were involved had space. Like, I think at one of the events there were like 6 or 7 artists or something, and so we had to make sure they all had space. Or maybe it was only like 5, but they had the space. Yeah. We had to hang artwork. We had to hang Alex's artwork too, which were super heavy.
All that resin.
And we started at 10 a.m. and then the event would start at 7 or something and run until like midnight.
No, not even. The
2
ones that they would stop. They would stop at 4. We'd have to be out by 5, and then so we'd break everything down within an hour, and then we would get the U-Haul. Try to get the U-Haul back. Like 7.
I mean, it was almost
24
a full 24 hours of us being up, setting up, doing the event, and then taking it all down.
Yeah.
Oh
It
my
was a
gosh.
nightmare.
But
it was great
It
at the
was
same time.
miserable in terms of like it was real hard work. Like
Yeah.
we did hard work by ourselves, but
Mhm.
we learned so much. And I would say that like you're saying, that catered
Mhm.
to our ability to create the space that we've made right now.
Oh, I mean, without
Especially
a
with
doubt.
lighting.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the coolest thing that I remember is after I think it was after the third one that we did, the one for Foley and Lardner, the one that I think that one was where we got those big yellow crates, and we did the first like go through everything, what is not needed, and we started kind of understanding our environment a little bit better.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think from there, we just kind of when Julia actually got her space in December of 2019, right? 2019. That's when I think everything kind of really started taking off, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Mhm.
No, I would say it's exactly a year ago we had the idea to do what we're doing right now. With
Yeah,
the
right?
exception of the podcast, it wasn't necessarily like a
Mhm.
solid like plan or any sort.
That was
even though
just like it just
talked
fell
about.
into our lap, really.
Yeah, but the idea of the studio being a gallery space a year ago, we said we want to do this, and we met Sonia right at that time.
Yeah.
And
on our friend's
musician,
birthday.
Sergio, and we told her we want to have you play in our space, and we're going to do this, and no pandemic was going to stop us.
No.
We were like, you got to come play in
You
our
got
space, and we did it.
Yeah.
And it seems crazy, thinking about it, talking about it, but
Yeah. It's always interesting when you kind of like lay out the steps that kind of got you to a particular place. It almost like becomes like a mindless aspect of our lives. So it's nice to kind of review and assess, because even from after this first show, it's the space within, what was it, like a month or 3, however long we were kind of doing these additional kind of cosmetic upgrades to the space. Like I think it's night and day from where we initially had stopped progress in, what was it, June, August? What was that?
Maybe, yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's just never going to stop transforming.
Oh, no.
It's just
we always...
More and more because we've just become like addicted to like building things for spaces and like designing spaces and fixing the furniture and upgrading things and like building shelves and doing things like that we make or think are awesome, and then almost immediately after realizing we could have done it better. And we're like, okay, now we got to do it better, and we do it again. So that's just how it goes.
Coming back to you as an artist, do you see yourself in the same way as like a traditional painter? Because I know you do your mural, you do your wall murals now. You have your Sumi ink drawings, but you're also doing these other things in terms of like, I guess, like sculptural pieces, interior design now is kind of a big thing that you do now. Like, how do you classify yourself? Or like, where do you see your heart taking you in terms of like your expression?
I don't know. I don't necessarily see it. I don't know what title. Like, what do I call myself? I guess
That's a good
one
question.
of the struggles that I've always had as an artist is like, what do I want to do? Do I have something, like I always want to do everything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I'm interested in doing everything, and I at least want to try a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And if I decide I don't like it, then that's fine. At least I tried it. But then I find at the same time that I guess not to say it so selfishly and like to my own horn, but I feel like I'm good at a lot of things, and I haven't given myself enough time, I think, to really hone in on one of those things and make it my best. Like, this is my best thing that I can do, and I can identify myself as strictly a painter or like strictly a muralist or strictly with ceramics or whatever. And with the exception of like my confidence level in terms of being able to articulate my drawings and transfer those onto walls now is like, I would say that's like what I'm the most confident in at the moment. And so I don't know, maybe my title will become muralist, and that's what it'll be. But at the moment, it's just kind of like, I don't know, who am I? But
it was a loaded question. For sure.
It was a loaded question. But like I just told you recently, like I felt so like when we first started putting together the studio space for this show specifically, and we were building all this stuff and we were like organizing things, and I'm definitely like, at least I try to have some sort of structure in my life and like organize, probably over organize things, and more specifically in my head, like things should go like this. And it never works out that way, but I loved the idea and like what we were doing for Patrick and Linda and creating this space and like giving them an opportunity and almost running, even though there's still so much to learn, like running a business and setting up this like opportunity. Like I was like so thrilled by like us doing that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could do this forever. And so like the ability to have a space, like a professional space, to continue to do this, that even branches outside of the studio that we have now eventually, like I'm like ready to take that on as like a gallery owner and a curator, and interior design space for artists specifically, and still do something like the murals on the side. Like I don't see myself as being like a big creator, where I'm like all of a sudden I want to make these giant sculptures all the time. Like we have a huge project where we are making technically a giant sculpture, but I don't see it as like me in a box. Like that's who I am in a box, so.
Do you think, I guess here's a good question. Do you see yourself then putting on too many hats? Is that something that you worry about? Because I think there's people out there that are trying to figure out what they're good at, and that's kind of like a pitfall in its own way, is that you try so many things, you're interested in so many things that your focus gets scattered. What do you think?
My focus is definitely scattered, and because of that reason, for sure, specifically.
Yeah.
But what was your question?
The question is, I guess let me bring that question a little further and say, okay, I asked you if you were thinking you were wearing too many hats when it came to that.
Was the question.
But do you also see maybe that you're doing all these things because eventually what you're going to become, whatever this is leading to, is going to need all these kind of dipping your toes into all these different things?
Yes, I feel that. And it's probably going to sound really crazy to say, but I feel like everybody will feel it at some point if you haven't already. It's just like your purpose and your calling, like it will really, as crazy as it sounds saying it out loud, like it will speak to you. And when something feels right, you're doing something and you feel like, even if it's like taking all of your energy, like physically, like putting all together those shows that we did, the live art shows and the small festival events, it's hard physical work, but I mean, it was so much fun. And you're just like, man, like this is for me, and whether you're making a lot of money on it or not, like when you feel that calling, you're like, you have to answer that. And I feel like that's right now, like me recently, I used to work at Trader Joe's and I just quit, and I'd been wanting to leave for a while because I really did want to pursue this as a full-time career. And of course, there's a lot of things, that go along with quitting your job, like that, a structured job in that way where you have like pretty secure 9 to 5. And jumping into something where you're like don't really know when you're gonna make money or like when it's gonna come in, but it feels so right, and I can see that being the case where you have all these little, well, at least for me, I have all these little things that I'm learning and I'm experiencing, and they're all gonna just like coming together like this, like and then all of a sudden
it's gonna be
it'll just be me, it'll just be my life, and it'll be solid. At least that's what I hope.
I mean, the age-old saying, right? There's many paths up the mountain, and it sounds like you're on many paths, and it's all converging into one ultimate thing. Wherever that's going to be. And I think that's half the journey. And I think for anyone out there that's going through the same journey, definitely be open. I think that's a huge thing. Be open. I mean, for me, the same thing was that I find myself being more kind of fighting myself when I'm trying to actively kind of direct where this momentum is going, rather than just being like, okay, well, something obviously bigger than I can comprehend at this moment brought me here. Let me be open to the experience and see, you know, how it influences me. Because again, I think it comes back to the idea that, you know, maybe we shouldn't be labeling ourselves or trying to compartmentalize these little aspects of what it means to be an artist or what it means to be a curator or a gallery owner. Maybe it can be something that's more, you know, encompassing on that kind of a level.
Well, what about you then? Do you feel like you are
I
trying too many things, or you feel like there's something that you could be really good at you haven't tried yet, or?
I definitely wouldn't say that. I mean, who knows what there is to do? I mean, there's so many different techniques and mediums and materials that I want to work with that, you know, can influence where I want to go. But in terms of many hats, I battle with it. You know, I think that that's something that I always felt that when it came to my choosing to be a full-time artist, I felt like it was a spiritual calling, and that I look at a lot of my artwork in that kind of a vein, that it's something that's coming from beyond me, because what art to me is a form of connecting with people and bridging gaps, and especially in a world where we're so isolated, or at least to a degree we're isolated, and how we have a lot of barriers, and you know, just sometimes it's a little beauty can just break down walls and make people kind of see the humanity in each other. And that was for me like a big thing. And so yeah, I mean, I think the ego gets in the way, and I think that's something that's huge. Like, I want to be making my own work, and I think that's like that is my ego being like, I want to be the leader of change, rather than like, okay, like I'm facilitating change. And that's where I am right now, you know, in terms of, and funny enough, speaking about that, that's always what I wanted. That's like such a huge revelation right now. Remember that one book I would always read, the Patanjali Sutras? And I would read, for the longest time, I would read this one. It's basically a one school of thought for yoga, and it follows the teachings of Patanjali. It's broken up into 3 different books, but for some reason, after reading it through a bunch of times, I was kind of hooked on this one that was about selfless service, and how, you know, basically the many ways and how selfless service kind of aids in your path. And funny enough, you know, I find myself, I guess, I always wanted that. I dedicated a lot of my morning ritual in terms of yoga and meditation towards that aspect. And now, of course, you know, it's funny. You definitely, the age-old saying, you know, you get what you ask for, and I definitely have gotten it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's all pointing towards something, and you know, I think that if this wasn't where I needed to be, there would be huge warning signs, and that would kind of conflict with how fluid everything is feeling right now. So
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think there, in terms of signs, like finding your calling, if this is something that's right for you, like those exist. There are signs, I feel like, that exist, and
Oh, for sure.
and you just have to know how to recognize them. Like, something is making you feel terrible if you're going to a job every day where you feel awful, and you know, it's just not like, you can't connect with people there, or you can't figure out how to work the job, like in some sort of way, like or you know, anything at home, it's just like, it doesn't feel right. You go out to the city you're in, it doesn't feel right. All those things, like those are signs that, you know, you could pay attention to, and they're going to be unique for everyone. But you know,
I mean, it's all. I mean, if life to me is like this idea of awareness, and that if the more you can be mindfully aware of your surroundings and how you observe them, the more that things like, it sounds all esoteric, but if you look at what awareness really is, it's paying attention to what's right in front of you. And I think that a lot of the times you'll see that. And yeah, sometimes stuff will get hard. Like, I definitely remember being in positions where, you know, rent's due, no money in the bank account, and I'm just like, you know, I'm outside, like, crying my eyes out, being like, what am I doing with my life? You know, I'm stressing my family out, I'm stressing myself out. But funny then obviously somehow the money will find its way to me, or some important opportunity will present itself. And I think that's a huge aspect of the struggle, because I think when it comes to being an artist, it's not going to be handed to you, and nothing is handed to you, because I think that for whatever fruit you're trying to bear, you have to sow the seed, right? And have to go through those cycles of the seasons of your life in order to kind of reap your harvest. And I think that's where all of us are. I'm sure everyone has their own harvest that they're trying to get to, and their own goals they're trying to attain. And it's just about, again, paying attention to those signs, being aware of your surroundings. And, if you get to that point where things aren't making sense and you're butting your head up against the wall, then, time to pivot. And maybe not even pivot away from art, if it is art, or from whatever it is. It's okay, well, what about my current direction within this field am I not doing right? And then maybe it's like, oh, let me try curating, or let me try, whatever it is. I think that's been something I think that's been really interesting about what we've been doing. It's just moving, navigating, and being very pliable.
Yeah. I guess this is a little late, but I guess we should start. How did we meet? Tell me about our meeting experience. This is kind of segue into something a little less serious.
We got really into it.
There.
Yeah. Well, we met at Trader Joe's. Yeah, Julia was, working at this one on South Lake, and I never went to this one. I don't know why I decided to go to that Trader Joe's that day, but I was like, I need some food at the studio, or else I'm going to be starving, and go to, for some reason, that one. And she's the cashier, and we get, I'm like, wow, she's a beautiful lady. Let me go talk to her. Let me go into that line. Let me see what's going on over there. And so, yeah, I chat her up, and I remember she was telling me that she got pretty bad sleep that night. Apparently, you were on the early morning shift. I know that you were there for really early, but you went to bed really late, and you're just like, but I'm surviving.
I probably just went. I don't even remember what it was. I probably just went out with my coworkers.
No, you were trying to help someone out. I forgot. It was like something like that. Needless to say,
I don't remember that.
I just got caught in the glimmer of the shimmer of your eyes. And and from there I told her that I was about to go to my studio, and she's like, oh, I'm an artist too. And we just kind of connected over art first and foremost, and we exchanged instead of numbers, it was Instagrams. And
Instagram is the new number,
this new age that we're in. And and then we had our first date a week later, and that was the start of something special, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in between there in terms of me badgering him to be my boyfriend.
Well, I mean, at that time I was, I was going through my own feels, and trying to figure out, if I was ready for a relationship, because I just had gotten out of a particularly tumultuous one, and
he was in denial.
I was. I was for sure hardcore in denial. Hardcore.
So I was like, let's just do it.
Yeah. And we did.
Here we are now.
And who would have thought that this amazing person that was so giving and so caring, and obviously a brilliant artist, was gonna
We have a minute and a half.
We have a minute. What? Have we been talking for that long?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Guys, we have a minute left. We're going to be kind of sewing things up, at least on IGTV.
I think
We're done. We're done. We're going to keep it right there.
Yeah.
All right, we're actually going to keep it right there. But okay, but don't forget, guys. We want to.
We have our art show up right now. We have Patrick Semple's paintings for sale. Here's one here. These are a little more accessible, but we have this one back here as well. That's one of his. If you haven't seen yet, we also have Linda's ceramics. If you go to Artory DTLA, you can purchase these works, and you can see a little bit more of what we're doing. If you don't know already, I'm sure you'll learn more about us as we go,
Yeah,
and we show up here
that was
every
a lot.
week, every Friday. Yeah. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank
Uh-huh.
you to Wilshire 1001, of course,
Again,
for
yes.
hosting us here at
Amazing
this
studio
location.
space.
And thank you to Happening Studios for broadcasting us and giving us this platform again. We are so grateful for you guys and for all the artists out there. Connect with us, and yeah,